Amazing Grace.
How sweet the sound.
Patty and Emily, thoughts and comedy from Broadway superfans. From Broadway superfans.
Thinking about all the shows that we've seen, do you
Yes.
think that this show is the most racist show we've ever seen? Or can you think of something that was more racist than this? Because I'm pretty hard pressed to find anything. I've been so angry so many times in the theater. I must have been
I think the show's depiction of the slave experience, overall, obviously, it's going to be racist just because a white person was writing about the slave experience. But that, I thought, was going to be much more racist in general.
I agree.
And it wasn't.
Yeah.
The white savior aspect of it, just how blatant it was, absolutely.
Right. No, I agree that I was expecting the show to gloss over a little bit more about, like, the slave auction.
Yeah.
And I did think they set a good tone in that scene, where they were actually auctioning people off. That, I think they set as good of a tone as they were capable of setting.
Which is, what I'm saying. Like,
yeah.
It's still at a base level racism, because someone who can't possibly pretend to understand is writing about it.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean,
it wasn't, while racist, that wasn't as, like, offensive as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
But still, overall, I mean, I think so. I think so.
I can't think of anything else. Well, this show was literally like, I own slaves. Jesus told me it was bad, and I was like, okay. Like, that's what this fucking show was. If you want to bring it back down. I was an atheist, and then I thought I was going to die. I prayed to Jesus, and Jesus said, you're cool. Also, black people are people.
It's even worse than, like, he owned slaves and believed in slavery because he was just like, I don't give a shit about anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
He probably knew it was wrong, but he didn't care.
He was like the perfect, if he were alive today, he's the guy who, he's like the hotshot who raped a bunch of women on his college campus and was like, whatever motherfuckers, that's what happened inside a frat house! Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's who he is.
Oh,
like,
that's
in
definitely
today
who he was. But then he found Jesus.
Right, and then Jesus was like, shh, change your mind. Black people are cool.
Guess what? All those other people had Jesus on their side, supposedly, too. Who were selling slaves. Who were selling humans to other humans.
Yeah. Guess what? There's slavery in the Bibles. Like,
well, yeah.
I'm an atheist, and I know that slavery is wrong. Because it's wrong.
Because it's wrong. And I don't want this to turn into, like, us shitting on religion.
To be clear, our problems with this show are not because it's a religious show.
No, we love Leap of Faith.
I love Scandalous. Like, it's not because we hate religion, although we do hate organized religion.
Well, yeah. It's not that. It's the fact that this person was shitty and only got better because he almost died and God spared him.
Like, that is the most fucked up white man bullshit I can think of. To literally be like, I don't give a shit about anything. I'm gonna sell people and I'm gonna do all these awful, horrible, horrible things and be a completely wretched human being. And then when my life is in need, when I'm about to, like, I think I'm about to die, all of a sudden I'm like, oh shit, I'm sorry. And then, based on surviving that, think that A, God is real and is listening to you, and also, I should change my entire life. Like, that's just... You were a shitty person, and you're still going to be a shitty person even though you love God now. Here's one positive.
Okay.
The English costumes were beautiful.
Oh, beautiful.
I mean, like, insanely gorgeous,
So
intricate.
beautiful.
They must have spent a handy chunk of change on their costumes. The English costumes. The African costumes were a big misstep. I thought that they were...
Yeah.
I mean, I don't specifically know clothing trends in Sierra Leone in that time period at all.
In the early, mid-1700s.
But I have a really fucking hard time believing that the women were wearing some of those fitted dresses with two-tiered skirts that you put them in just because they were in like African print. It's pretty stupid. It's so fucking frustrating to see those beautiful dresses that were so well researched and so well done.
Well, because
and like
the people who put this show on, and I'm not even talking about the costume designer, I don't know what sort of creative, I mean, take responsibility for your work, but I don't know what sort of creative binding I think Tony, could be a man or a woman, was up against, but I don't think what tribal people wore in the Sierra Leone at that time would be deemed appropriate. Back to our discussion about if this is the most racist show. I think the most racist thing about the show was the framing device of Thomas / Pakute introducing the story and then giving a sort of epilogue.
It was disgusting.
Of
I was disgusted by
being
that.
like, this is a story that needs to be told.
No, it doesn't.
It's been told. I mean, not if you wanted to tell this man's story, and I'm not going to say that no one's story should be told just because of something about them, namely that they're a white man, but it doesn't need to be told on this scale because these stories are told on this scale at all times. If you want to preserve that, it's somewhat interesting, especially historically, taking the religious aspect out of it or taking it taking it at an academic level. That's interesting to me. But write a book about it.
I think that there's a way to tell this white guy's story in a non-racist way.
Sure.
I think that is possible. I think when the person that wrote it is a religious person and their angle on it is the religious angle on it, that's never going to happen because he's white and probably doesn't know any black people. I mean, he does now. He's probably met the cast.
That framing device still made it like it was Chuck Cooper telling us his characters, telling us this story. Like, I really need you to hear the story of my slave master.
No. You know what I also
want to hear his story.
Yeah.
I want to hear even Erin Mackie's character's story, which I also want to know if that character was based on anyone in reality or was she pure fiction. Even if she's fiction, that's an interesting story to hear.
Well, also completely on the side of Erin Mackie's character, I thought it was infuriating that based on all the descriptions of the shows, it was like, it's all about the guy who owned slaves and found Jesus, and also
Amazing Grace.
Right, and she's playing a character who's like his sweetheart back home. But she had a significant storyline, and she was a fucking abolitionist. If that had been in the text that it was like at the beginning of the synopsis of the show, I would have been slightly less worried about how racist it was going to be.
Yeah, we would have at least gone into it
being like, well, at least we're going to see Erin Mackie being an abolitionist, which I was happy to see.
Well, should we talk about performances and just move on? Because we could keep talking about
we could talk about
the nonsense of the show forever.
Actors, fantastic.
Yeah, I mean...
You know, Josh Young plays a good asshole.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
He plays a great total fucking asshole.
Yeah.
Man, white guy.
His voice is like nonsense.
It's great.
I wish the music were better. I mean, obviously, he didn't do 10% of the things he could do with his voice. Neither did Tom Hewitt. Tom Hewitt had one song that pretty much stayed mid-range the whole time, and I was like, I'm so right now.
Yeah, I agree.
Chuck Cooper's song was really the only moving song in this show. Nowhere Left to Run. And that was really the only song that I was like, had any feels during.
Yeah.
I think that has mostly to do with Chuck Cooper.
Yeah. I definitely think.
I think it was a better use of his range, which, you know, if you have a boring middle range song, you could be the best singer in the world and you'd have to like work real hard to make it effective. Erin Mackie.
She was great.
She was
Her voice is really pretty.
Her voice is
my God.
beautiful.
So nice.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, I mean, she's great, and it's
It's
frustrating because I want to
play.
it's a hard role to play, and I want to see the musical that's about that character.
I
That's not a
know.
racist musical, you know, because she had an interesting story. Her story is interesting, and like, she was a spunky lady.
Yeah.
And Erin Mackie's fun to watch on stage. And she wears those costumes very well. She looks period appropriate.
She does look period appropriate. Although I did find it funny when her suitor, the captain, I think he's a captain, was like, "You're skinny." Because it's true, period-wise, that the more money you had, like, plump was beautiful because you had food to eat.
Right. If you know the historical context for how sizes were interpreted in that time period, I thought that joke was kind of funny and layered, because also knowing that her and her mother were sort of desolate and were like selling off their silverware. So yeah, she was skinny because she was malnourished because she couldn't afford food, and he was, you know, still after her or whatever. I thought it was funny, but I also immediately was like, how many people in the audience understand that?
Oh, not very many.
Not very many. Like, people were literally starving and they were skinny.
Yeah. They were. It's like Survivor.
Yeah. And if you were fat, you were like, I got money, suckers.
I can eat food.
I can eat food to excess. That's how much money I have.
Protein. Harriett Foy played the princess. She was great.
I was getting so much Angela Bassett, American Horror Story from her, and I was loving it. And I don't know if her costumes were historically accurate or not, but I did like her costumes because I thought that it made sense that a woman of that station would wear English dress and also mix it up with like her African hairstyle. Like,
and the fabrics.
And the fabrics were different, and like, and also she was just such a fucking badass. Like, she was awesome, although evil. I'm capable of sympathizing with her, even though she was, you know, a powerhouse in the slave trade in her region. I cannot sympathize with the white guy.
Well, mostly, I think, because she is a leader of her tribe and then comes along this outside influence that is going to do what they're going to do no matter what. And so, being the leader, she took the only leadership role that was available. And if that outside influence hadn't come along, that was the catalyst. Is that the best decision? No. Is it a somewhat understandable decision? Is it the same decision that those men on that boat would have made? Abso-fucking-lutely.
Yeah. Laiona Michelle. She was fucking great.
She was great.
And also, I thought that her character had some good layers to it, because she was Erin Mackie's character's personal slave, and when Erin Mackie is like, I might be joining the abolitionist movement, she's like, don't do it, girl. Like, that's dangerous. And it's sort of one of those things where, I mean, yeah, being outspoken can be extremely dangerous, and she was on the side of, the only way I know how to survive is to lay low.
Right.
And trying to convince Erin Mackie of that.
And they were safe, and she was safe, and even as you know that others don't have it as good as you do, in that moment, you're like, what's going to happen to me if you get found out?
Right, exactly. Yeah, because if Erin Mackie gets caught for being an abolitionist, I mean, her slaves would be in much worse situations, I'm assuming. I'm sure. They would probably all be killed.
Yeah. And her song was another example of, like, most of it was low in her range, and when she did get to go up, you could hear what she could do, but it just kept going back to that low range part. And it sounded good, like it wasn't too low for her, but I was like, I would just like this to be written better.
I appreciate it when the people that write the music love belting as much as I do and want to make that happen. As opposed to just being like, let's write this song. And I'm like, let's write this song with all these great opportunities for belting.
I felt
So you
it.
can do both.
Yeah.
I think when you're white and you're only around white people and you do a lot of dumb things without realizing it.
Like write a musical.
Like write a musical.
From Broadway super fans.
Yeah, Josh Young, really great asshole. Let me say that differently.